hearty welcome from all of us. We are waiting to hear from you. What, according to you, and generally, what do we call as mm, adverse childhood experiences, and how it is connected to trauma?
Thank you so much, Dr. Rozina Rana. It is a pleasure to be here with you and with everybody who is present on the session today. Yeah, your question is, what are adverse childhood trauma? Now, as the name suggests, adverse childhood experiences, which means in our childhood, we often go through some unpleasant adverse experiences. And this is where a child feels unsafe. As an adult, I may not be doing anything to the child to make the child feel unsafe. But the child, if the child's perception is the child is unsafe, the child is, the environment is also not safe, either adults in the environment or the general environment. Any experience between 0 to 17 years, which lingers on, 0 to 17 is childhood. And as you mentioned, it can linger on. It can lead to a lot of trauma, which actually goes right into adulthood also, unless the good part is it can be resolved. If somebody recognizes that I'm traumatized by this and goes for help and resolves it, then the trauma doesn't exist. They will learn to manage how to deal with it. Because this trauma, if we leave unresolved, it could lead to impact on growth and development of both the physical, mental, brain-wise, everything. So that, in a nutshell, is what is adverse childhood experiences. But we must remember that trauma can happen at any age. But today, why we spend so much time on childhood is because childhood is the foundation. And if we can get people to understand how we can help children not live with trauma or perceive safety, that's why we spend so much time on childhood experiences.
Yeah, beautiful. I think the best thing is that it is reversible.
Yeah, very
Yeah.
much.
And that's where we have an important role as educators, as parents, as teachers. We have very, very important role. So, what are the types of traumas, ma'am, if you can tell us?
Yeah, the types are, I mean, the main types, there is something known as intergenerational trauma. Intergenerational means it moves on from one generation to the other. Some examples of intergenerational trauma is uh, war, children who get separated from their parents, children who lose their parents. There is racism, there is casteism. These go on, it doesn't end in one generation, it continues over generations. So color is something that is also an intergenerational trauma, because people are traumatized if they are not fair. And
Mhm.
this goes all over the world. It's not just only in India. That is intergenerational trauma. Then there is acute trauma, which is a single, unexpected, stressful event. In fact, in our center, we've had people who have come, now in their mid 20s, late 20s, who observed the tsunami. When the tsunami came, and there her mother was carrying her, and her mother saw the wave coming. She just threw the child on a tree, and it was very traumatic for her. So it took her some time to resolve that trauma. Then there is chronic trauma, that is repeated exposure to stressful events. It could be abuse as in physical, sexual, or domestic violence, or terrorism. There is so much terrorism happening in so many areas. So they're always living in fear as to what is going to happen. And the fourth one is complex trauma, where we are exposed to multiple different types of traumatic experiences or events, and they could be invasive or interpersonal. So these are the four types of trauma that
Yeah. There's a wide spectrum, we can say. There's a wide spectrum, right from home to maybe school to outside to in the world, what is happening. Everything can impact a child and even an adult. Yes. So, what, ma'am, is the prevalence? Like any examples, incidences, or statistics, if you would like to throw some light?
Yeah, I will. Okay, yeah, I will do that. Before that, I would just like to talk about this study known as Adverse Childhood Experiences.
Mhm.
It is a major study where I think almost 2000, around 2000 children were interviewed, observed, children from 0 to 17 years. And what they found as adverse childhood experiences were, like you mentioned, it happens at home, it
Mm.
happens at school, it happens also if the parents or the caregivers are not in a position to take care of the child. It, for example, over here it would be, say, sexual abuse, verbal abuse, physical abuse, neglect. In school, bullying, and in some ways, neglect also happens. In the case of caregiving, if the parent or the primary caregiver is unable to give care to the child because of domestic violence or abuse, alcohol, drug abuse, and so they are not in a position to actually be present for the child physically and or emotionally, then when there is, say, somebody in the family has been jailed, especially a parent, and sometimes the parents have mental health issues also, and they are trying to cope with their own issues, and they're not able to take care of the child. And if there is death in the family, this is generally that comes from people, environment, and so on. There is another kind of trauma which comes from separation of children in their childhood. It could be infancy, it could be early childhood, it could be even little later childhood. And over here in India, we don't have too much of foster care, though a lot of work is going on to bring in foster care. But people living in care or people living on the roads, I mean, the children in conflict with law or in contact with law, they go through a lot of trauma. Another kind of trauma that exists is, like I said, separation. Sometimes children who get adopted in other homes, this trauma of separation remains.
Mm.
But again, like you and I both mentioned, the good part is it can be resolved, it can be
Yes.
helped. Now the statistics.
Mm.
So I listed about 10, 12 types of adverse childhood experiences that children may experience. 52%, according to the ACE study, adverse childhood experiences study, 52% have experienced no adverse childhood experience at all. So more than half the number of children have not
Which
experienced,
means 48% have,
which means
which
48.
is a big number.
It's a big number. And in that 48, so 23%, so I would say about around quarter of the number of children have experienced any one. It could be only domestic violence, it could be verbal, physical abuse, or something like that. Any one of those cases. 16% have experienced two or three of the 10, 12 ones that I spoke about, and 9% have experienced four or more.
That's a big number. 9% also would be a big population, which and has experience for, which is big.
Yes, so about 25% have experienced more than two. Now, this brings me back to the classroom, me coming from the educational background and in this teaching in the school, and for teachers present over here,
Mm.
in a classroom, say a classroom of 30 students, we can extrapolate the number. There'll be 6 students who are absolutely untouched by any adverse experience. 5 children in a class of 30 would have experienced one adverse childhood experience. 6, 2. This is a study done in the US, but the thing is, that sample size is so big and India is such a big country, it would very likely that the numbers will be very similar
Same.
in India. So six children with two ACEs, I'm going to use the word ACEs, adverse childhood
Mm,
experiences,
mm, mm.
three children with three ACEs, seven children with 4 to 5 ACEs, and another three children with six or more. And as a teacher, I mean, I can now relate actually. In any classroom, we have about 3 or 4 children who really are not able to engage in the classroom. And if as teachers we recognize that there must be something happening to the child, and just go and okay, I'll go into the details of how we can
Yeah,
do
but
that.
ma'am,
But these are the
I think,
needs.
after listening to this is such a big eye opener. And I feel massively in schools, there's a lot of work on this in this area that we need to do. And a lot of teachers training needs to happen on how to identify and how to support. I think that's a big challenge that is there. And together we should work towards it. And I'm very much open to work for this. And yes, moving forward, ma'am, being trauma informed, how does trauma impact? So, if you can tell us.
Yeah, I'll tell you very briefly. A lot of it is on the net. If you go
Mhm.
on the net, there's lots and lots of information. But in brief, for the parents and teachers and all caregivers present over here, our brain development starts from the back.
Mm.
So that is a prime. It's called the primitive brain, and here at the back of the brain, it is where our bodily experiences and memories stay over here. So the sensory processing and memory happens here. So what happens is very early childhood when I'm separated from my mother, or I have experienced some abuse, somebody has beaten me, or this sexual abuse happens even at such a young age. Those memories remain over here. The brain starts developing from the back to the front.
Mm.
By the time, as per present study, by the time the brain develops, it is almost, the child is, well, adult is almost 25 years old. So
Yeah.
that is why we see in our teenage all kinds of, risk taking and all, because this frontal part of the brain is that talks about planning, prioritization, decision making, discrimination, and also that is why any childhood experience up to 18 years, till the complete brain is developed, it does affect the child because memories remain and the bodily memories remain. And that is one thing. And if the memories remain, what happens is it affects the nervous system and our immune system. Many of us over here would know that there's a vagus nerve, which
Mm.
actually goes to all our alimentary system, our digestive system, respiratory system, heart, cardiac system. If that, if I'm in trauma, if my brain is in trauma, then that nerve gets affected, and as a result, all the organs in our body, which is supplied by the vagus nerve, which is called the vagal complex, everything gets affected, and
Affected.
it stays on until it is resolved.
Till
It
it is
stays
resolved.
on if we need to resolve it.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then, as a result, when it stays on, the child is always in the fright, flight, or freeze mode. And any safe experience also, any safe adult also appears to be threatening for them because their experience has been very frightful.
Mm.
So that is something that how it affects growth and development. Unaddressed issues can lead to chronic health problems, mental health issues, use of substances in adulthood, difficulty in building healthy relationships.
Relationship. I know.
I mean, very briefly, this kind of covers the whole gamut of our lives.
Mm.
So,
Correct. Yeah, absolutely. Beautifully explained, madam. Beautifully explained how from childhood to 25 years, how it settles inside your brain and your psyche. and it hinders all your activities, right from work to job to general relationship with parents, or anybody. Beautiful. And unaddressed, if it is addressed, then the resolution happens, the closure happens. Otherwise it lingers, it goes on. Lovely. What are the stages of trauma sensitive caregiving, ma'am?
Yeah, so there are three main stages. First of all, we must recognize and be informed of what is trauma for a child. What I perceive as my behavior with my child may seem very normal, but what is the perception of the child? What does the child perceive as trauma? Then we should know the skills to support the child to manage their challenges. Because very typically, what happens is as adults, whether we are parents or teachers or relatives, uncles, aunts, we get down to correcting behavior of children, but that is only a manifestation of something happening inside to the child. And we must practice caregiving skills, which means if we are a caregiver, whether a counselor, a teacher, a parent, any other caregiver, we must also get into our self care. It is not easy to support a child or an adult who has undergone trauma because their brains are all awry. They're going all over the place. They themselves don't know what has to be done. And as a result, we also have to be extremely careful, which means we also have to have our support systems in place to be able to help children and adults.
Yeah, very much. And many times the behaviors parents are not able to understand, why is my child behaving like this? They may not be even aware, even teachers, they may not be even aware that the child is coming from some kind of a trauma and therefore he's reacting or he's kind of shut down or something. So it's important to know this. And as you mentioned, first you wear your own mask. So for teachers and parents, it's important to take care of their own mental health to support somebody who needs help. So, yes, ma'am, moving forward, what triggers and behaviors? What are the triggers and behaviors that indicate? So, how do parents and teachers identify these struggles?
Yeah, the triggers can be any number based on the experiences that the child has gone through. Some very common triggers are sensory inputs. Attended a session on sensory inputs and what can lead to trauma. And it was surprising. The lady who has done the study and conducted the session for us said there was something that was happening to the child when the child was watching TV, and the parents could just not figure out what was happening. And after a lot of study, they realized that there was a yellow light in the TV screen which was causing something in the brain. So, sensory issues, it could be touch, it could be light, it could be anything. Some children don't like touch. Some children want to be touched all the time. So any sensory issues, smells, it can be any of the five senses. They may also be affected by presence of any male or a female, a man or a woman, depending on their experiences. If I've had a bad experience with any man in my life, I would be very, very afraid of men in my life. And it's very interesting. I was working with a parent who adopted a child of about 2.5 years old, and the parents were very loving. They knew what to do, all the right things, but the child did not want to go to the father. And then we said, okay, what could be the reason? So they went back to the agency and they found that the caregivers were very nice, the lady caregivers. But if they wanted to discipline children, they would call the gentleman who was an administrator who would come and scold all the children and go
Oh.
away. So that is why for them, now the child is much older and the child is very comfortable with the father. But when the child just came home, it was pretty difficult for them.
Hmm, hmm, hmm.
Certain behaviors and actions of people, arguments, fights, domestic violence, fathers or mothers alcoholic and then losing control of
Even
themselves.
divorce, separation, parents fighting in front of children, physical
Absolutely.
fights. Yeah.
Absolutely. And then sometimes parents get into making the children take sides also. Okay, tell me who is right, tell me
Yes.
who is wrong. And for the child, just imagine the trauma of the child, first of all, to see the parents in argument and then asking them to take sides also. Accidents, natural disasters, war, I told you. It is an inability to realize that the present is safe. You're talking about triggers. So these are the triggers. Some past experience brings back those old memories, and even though I'm in a safe environment now, I'm unable to recognize it and I'm feeling very insecure. So these are generally the triggers. And what are the behavioral indications? Again, for all parents, teachers, counselors, caregivers, everybody, children either become clingy or overcompliant.
Mm,
Overcompliance is a red flag. Clingy is a red flag because immediately you know that something is happening over there. Tantrums, aggressive outbursts. Again, culturally, we are made to behave well and all that. And so then what happens is then we correct the behaviors. Don't cry, don't shout, don't do this, and so on. Then other behavioral issues will be sleep issues, digestion issues, difficult. Here, this is another very important thing for parents and teachers. If they are trauma affected, they have difficulty to focus, they have difficulty to concentrate, academic performance may be affected. So, parents have goals, teachers have goals, which is good. It's good to have goals. I'm not saying we shouldn't have goals, but the thing is, if the child's academic performance is below what appears to be the potential of the child, we have to become absolutely aware and think, okay, go one level deeper, two levels deeper to see what could be happening to the child. The child is always on guard. Child could become a bully. Child could avoid certain activities. It's interesting, in a book I read, yoga as a therapy, but when they, in certain poses, when you had to spread your legs, that person just couldn't do the yoga because she was a victim of child sexual abuse.
abuse.
Yeah, so that is, yeah, in then and in adulthood, even in adolescence and as child, there are exaggerated reactions. Even in adulthood, it could move on to develop inability to develop happy relationships, intimate, happy relationships. These are the behavioral indications. Triggers come from the past experience.
Mhm. I think you have laid down all the entire gamut, the whole spectrum of indications, and there's a lot to learn for all the teachers, caregivers, and parents. That anything of this sort, they need to kind of investigate or go deeper and understand. One point I would like to ask, ma'am, over compliance. Now, here, when parents want their children to kind of follow everything that they are saying and discipline them, but too good is also not good, I would say. Like if they are doing everything, soja so gay, sleep and they're sleeping, eat they are eating. This over compliance also means that there is something.
Yeah, because there is insecurity, there is a fear that I may be abandoned. As
Mm.
a result, I become over compliant so that I'm pleasing. And how can I please everybody all the time? It is impossible. It'll come out later in adolescence or maybe adulthood. So over compliance, and I have a problem with two things that people say. This has happened in schools and it happens at homes. It happens everywhere. Obey your elders.
Yes.
Why should I obey my elder if my elder is not doing something nice? And that obedience to elders leads a lot to child sexual abuse also, because
Yes.
we are taught this, because we must be obedient. And the other is respect elders. Why should we respect? Of course, we respect elders. I don't have an issue with that. But the issue is, why can't we respect our younger people?
Mhm.
Why can't we respect children? Children come with their own minds, their own experiences. They also want something. And again, when we say respect elders, that is when our friendly neighbor, our uncle, our aunt, it can be anybody, sexual abuse happens, child sexual abuse happens both to girls and boys. But the thing is, but because we are respecting and obeying, we are not teaching our children life-saving skills to run away, to shout. We should teach our children when we are not comfortable with what somebody is doing, shout, run away from there.
Yeah.
And then the other thing I would request parents and teachers also is, if somebody comes and tells, uncle did something I didn't like, please believe them. Children
Mm.
don't tell lies.
True.
And otherwise, what happens? I've had people coming into our counseling center saying that when I told my mother said, this is an issue. Please don't talk about it. It's
Yeah.
over now. Forget it. But the child's memory, the child's body doesn't forget it. It stays on. So again, it can be addressed and it can be set right.
Yes,
I'm
yes.
actually stressing on this again and again because it is not a hopeless situation. It
Yes.
is absolutely possible that we can,
Yeah. Yeah.
overcome it.
Yeah. And we must, we
And we
should not just push it under the carpet and say, forget about it, let's not talk about it, but believe them and take some measures and action for them. This is so, so important. And yeah, respecting, as you mentioned, obeying, yes, but also having the life skills to kind of talk and voice it out when there is any problem. That is also parallelly should be taught. So in our tradition, respect and obeying is something that comes from generations to generations. And so it's really, this learning is such an important learning today for all of us.
so
So,
I'll just interrupt you for a
yes,
minute. That is
yes,
what is intergenerational trauma. Because
yes,
if we are not obedient, we are, as children, we feel traumatized. As parents, we feel traumatized that my child is not obeying. And one more thing I would just want to add, if any of us over here has not seen the movie Monsoon Wedding, please see it. It addresses child sexual abuse and how to deal with it very beautifully.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. I'm just loving everything that you're talking about, and I'm sure everybody is getting so much out of this session. So, ma'am, moving on, please, if you can talk on concept of surviving brain versus learning brain.
Yeah. What is a surviving brain? A surviving brain is always alert, always in a state to look out for danger. And there is danger over here, so I am going to protect myself. So I am, even if it is not a dangerous situation, because I perceive danger everywhere from every adult in the environment, I am in that surviving brain, which means I'm not able to enjoy my present. I'm not able to even, enjoy the relationships, situations, and all that. That is survival brain. And I'm going to be sharing a video on this. It's very beautifully explained, so I don't want to take away from that explanation. And the learning brain is a brain which is calm. And these are those children who have, say, 0, 1, or maybe up to 2 ACEs, and they are willing to experiment not in the bad sense, but learn, take risks. They are able to take risks and make mistakes. They don't feel bad that I've made a mistake. So that is the learning brain. Everything is in place. The brain structures, the nervous system, the emotional system, the physical system, everything is in place. And so I am able to learn. That is, I'll stop it here, and when we see the video, we'll probably see.
Yeah, as you see,
Bit
there
more
are so
details.
many people here who are listening and who are taking all the lessons that you're giving, ma'am. Thank you so much. How parents and teachers can help? What are the supporting strategies of sensitive caregiving?
I'm going to take little time here. All the
Please.
audience also must be little patient with me. I believe it can be divided in 4 categories. One is a general category. Then the second, more very important category is self-care. Self-care for who? Self-care for the parents, teachers, counselors, caregivers, everybody. Then there is another category that I have made is communication, how we communicate with people who have undergone trauma, and children, adults too. And consistency. Our behaviors have to be extremely consistent. Now, what are the general rules for sensitive caregiving? Have a general routine. It is very important that all of us have in the family. We have follow a certain routine. In fact, that's because children and even adults like predictability. In fact, if you notice in all these hostels and all that, their mess, they would have a weekly menu. So children know, okay, today is one day I will get puri bhaji for breakfast, and today is Tuesday. So they know they're not in for any surprises or shocks over there. So having a general routine is very important. Spending fun time with children. I was in a session yesterday actually, and the facilitator over there was saying, "Okay, how do you spend your time?" And it came out they maintained a journal, and parents were asked to maintain a journal. It came out that the time spent is only on giving instructions. Do this, don't do this. Go sit down and study. Don't behave, don't misbehave. It's 99.9% instructions, but have fun time. Play board games with the children. Go out to the park, play football, play whatever children enjoy, whatever they like, because they want to have fun with with parents also. We ensure that the children are aware of their boundaries and expectations. We have to be very clear with children as to what we are expecting from them. What are their boundaries? Certain things are negotiable, certain things are non negotiable. But it is not a rule, it should be done through discussion, which I will spend little more on the communication part. Again, allow children to cry, even if they are older children. Let them cry, especially boys. Boys like to cry. Let them cry. But crying is comes from the feeling of sadness. Men, women all go through the same feelings. But why over the generations do we tell people that ladka hoke ro raha hai, ladki ke jaise ro raha hai? I mean, girls can do anything, get away with murder, but ladka okay. And so the ladka's brain also gets wired in such a way, problem solving. So that is something that we have to allow children to cry. Ask them their views on different current events. You see, I'll share a personal experience. This happened with my daughter, and she came and told me, she was about 14 years old, and she came and told me, you know, a friend did this. Now, immediately my shock and my words both showed out on my face and in my words behavior. After that, for 7, 8 years, my daughter did not speak about that friend at all. I mean, today we are good friends. The friend also, and my daughter also speaks about everything. But so if we want to share certain views, understand something happens, there are lots of current events happening. Don't, as parents, we should not put our value systems over there. We have values, we should have values. I'm not denying that, but we should be able to sit and talk to the child. What do you think about this? You know, this whatever age appropriate event that is happening, take views from the child, because that is where that's still, I'm still on the general slide. Help them develop social relationships and sense of community. You know, today we have all moved into a, when we were children, we used to have very well laid out domestic chores in our house. But today, now, because there's so much help available, affordability is there, we must get children involved in household chores, so that they know that there is a responsibility, there's somebody doing so much, they have value for that. Start with personal things like making your bed, folding your clothes, and then putting it in the cupboard, and then larger things for the family. And it's very important. This last point on the general thing, very important to make the child feel safe. Very important, all caps, bold, underlined, make the child feel safe, large font, bold, underlined, everything. Now I move to the self-care part. What is self-care? We need to take care of ourselves. Unless we are aware of what's happening to us and we are relaxed, we will not be able to help our children. Invest time. What would be the self care? It could be go for a 30-minute workout. It could be, you don't even have to spend money. Sit at home. In school we were taught those PT exercises, no, those were
Yeah.
also very nice. Those
Just
are also
breathing,
nice.
just breathing deep and taking a stroll. Taking a
Absolutely.
stroll. You can just relax. Yeah.
Anything that relaxes us. Listen to music, spend 15 to 20 minutes time reading a book, reading the newspaper, anything. Some me time, depending on this home situation, but minimum 15 to 20 minutes. I'm sure we will be able to do
Sitting in
that.
the garden, maybe just looking
Yeah,
at the, outside your balcony, just standing doing nothing.
ab-
The race and pace of life is so fast that people just don't give even 10 minutes for themselves. So that's the situation. Yeah.
very true, very true. And this is a little thing for parents and teachers in particular. Avoid, I have done it, I've been party to it. And as schools, what happens is when they come to class 10, 11, 12, they take away the games period, they take away all that. And I was a maths teacher, so I would take all the library, PE, whatever would be there, because I wanted to complete this, give them more practice. So I have learned now in hindsight that's not a good thing to do, because as they go into adolescence and late adolescence, it becomes more and more important that children get physical exercise. Children are able to, a lot of their stress also gets burnt out, and their level of oxygen increases. They're able to concentrate better. So teachers, don't make the mistake that I made. Please don't take away that PE games period. And parents also, to encourage children to go out and play with peers.
Yeah.
You see, what happens is we blame children that they're always on the TV. Then we say that children don't listen to me when I say don't watch TV. But then what is it that we need to do? Give them some interesting alternatives. Play games with them. Come, we will play a game. There's so many games available, board games, running games, depending on how our home situation is.
That
And
needs a lot of time, efforts, and creative thinking to engage them into games, and that is work for parents. And today, parents are also busy, so because
true,
that
true,
is the situation. And also, there's so much of emphasis on academic performances, and therefore they take away all the time towards studies and all. And then finally, what happens is break time is screen time. So that's how there's no physical
true.
movement at all. Yeah,
True,
please.
but like you said, parents are very busy, but then there is no negotiation
Yeah,
on that. We have brought the children in the world, we have to do
we
what it
have to.
takes to make it. Sometimes when my grandchildren said, I'm so bored, I try to say, okay, we don't give screen time, but then I say, okay, what can we do? Shall we go out for a walk? What shall we
Mhm.
do? So my daughter says, it's okay, let them be bored. Give them a paper and pencil, ask them to draw, ask them to do something. They will find ways to come
Thanks.
out of that boredom. As adults, we don't always have to be, kind of there for them,
Yeah.
helicoptering, making
Taking
sure.
care of every little thing, right from boredom to any and every needs that they have. They should take accountability some point of time gradually and start doing their things. Yeah.
Very true, very true. And both for parents and for children, both for parents, teachers, when I'm saying parents, I mean adults, both for adults and for children, 7 to 8 hours sleep is absolutely essential. Absolutely essential. Then if we come for important points for parents and teachers to know, the child needs and depends on us for their safety and security.
Yes.
And there is no negotiation. The child needs, and we have to be available over there. I know teachers are under pressure that, you must get 80% average marks in the board exams, things like that. But safety and security and happy adulthood is more important than the marks.
Yeah.
Let us
And
understand.
also maybe graduates and postgraduates, but emotionally they are not able to manage themselves, PhDs and, achievers in life, but emotionally they are not able to manage themselves. And there the
Very
responsibility lies on teachers and parents and adults. Yes.
Very true. And once, we teach the children that put your best effort, doesn't matter
Yeah.
what marks you get. There are all late bloomers who will,
Mm.
as they grow older, because it has become a habit to put in the best effort, their effort will always pay off. And at the dinner table, hopefully we are all having dinner together. At the
Hopefully.
dinner table, we don't ask, okay, have you finished your homework? How much will you get? You should get 80 on 100, 90 on 100, 100 on 100. So there's only one question we ask at the dinner table. Have you put in your best today? That is all. What the result is, I don't care about the result. Have you put in your best effort? That's all.
Period.
Result will come. Result will come. Understand that growth and development pattern of how the human brain develops. Yeah, I just
Yeah.
mentioned that. Important for the child to feel safe physically, emotionally. Basic needs are met. Food has to be given on time. We can't do lecturing and ask them to study when they're hungry or thirsty. We also have to feel safe and secure. Adults also have to feel safe and secure. If we are insecure, I don't know now when my spouse comes home, what mood the spouse is going to come. So I'm already building in that insecurity in me. Then where am I present to be able to give what the child wants? And so that is about important for we don't carry our work pressures home or our home pressures to the work, and that we have to do very mindfully. Naturally it happens, but when we become mindful, we will become aware and we will not do that.
Sometimes there is no closing time for office. The at home also the office hours are on. I mean, pandemic also has
True,
led to this. But yes,
true, I
we
know.
are out of office, but office is not out of us.
I
So
know.
that happens.
Very true, very true. But then mindfully, we will have to
We have to.
do something about it. We have to, I don't know, I'm not going there, but maybe we have to have some arrangement with our managers and all saying
Hmm.
that, this time I need to spend with my children and so on. Because in our generation, I'm probably one generation above you. In our generation, our husbands used to come home by 6 o'clock, and the
Hmm.
children had time to spend with their fathers.
Yes.
But where now? You realize, like you rightly said, office is at home all the time.
Hmm.
Communication. Our communication should ensure, supposing I want to do some negotiation with my child, first make sure that the child is well fed, stomach is full, no thirst, sitting comfortably. So, communication has to be through negotiation. No instructions, rules. I know as an adult clearly what I expect the child to do, but I will first allow the child to speak and get her ideas, his ideas, and say, you know what, this is a good idea, but I feel it doesn't fit into our family system. So, how about trying this? But certain ideas I can take, but there's certain ideas that are non negotiable. We have to follow it. We also have to practice our emotional regulation. If I'm in a bad mood now, that is not the time to sit and talk. If my child is in a bad mood now, that is not the time to sit and talk. With younger children, 4 5 years old, we can do co-regulation through breathing, through drawing, through music, and say that, okay, are you feeling calm now? Once you're calm, 4 year old also speaks a lot. Huh? So once you're calm, we both, I'm willing to listen to you. Let's have a dialogue at that time. No explanation, no logic when the child is upset. And when we speak at the feelings level. You behaved like this, something seems to have upset you. Can we talk about it? So we do that. Then we listen again, listen all caps, huh? Listen
Yeah.
to the child, listen to the body language. If I tell you, oh, I'm so happy today, will you believe me? You will not believe me because my tone, my body language is so different. So listen actively from what the body is saying of the child and what the voice tone is. address the feelings of the child, don't correct the behavior. I know I have brought this again and again because I feel it is very important and we need to recollect, remember all the time. And whatever the age of the child, when I did my counseling course, my uh, I wanted to practice everything, no? So then I would tell my daughter, oh, it appears that you're upset now. So few times she took it and then she said, okay, stop practicing your counseling over here. But the thing is, when she was actually in a very, very deep situation and it worked beautifully. It works beautifully when we,
Yes.
and in counseling, what do? We address the feelings only
Yeah.
most.
Yeah. Yes.
Consistency. Now, the last bit about tips to parents and teachers and all adults, caregivers, consistency in rules. If there are rules, there have to be consequences. And these rules and consequences can be negotiated. We don't need to. I don't know it all. Today, children know much more than us. So together we sit and negotiate, and rules, consequences may be very well put on paper.
Mm,
Where does the problem happen if you don't carry it out? We have to
mm,
implement the consequence also. Yeah, clarity on what is negotiable, not negotiable. Then again, a lot of confusion comes to children when parents are in different, speaking different languages. Oh, your mother is not allowing, come, I'll give you. Oh, your father is behaving like this, come, I will do it for you. No.
messages, mixed messages.
Mixed messages. And if I am upset with what my husband is doing with my child, at that time I keep quiet. Later, when the child is not there in the privacy, in our own privacy, I will have to talk to my husband and say, okay, what you did didn't seem right to me. Or go behind the child and, give some indication that,
Yes.
stop it in a, but never let the child know that we have differences between the way we are doing. And even grandparents, if we are in a joint family, my suggestion is when it comes to screen time and junk food, grandparents should not be involved there at all. And they'll go to grandparents because no,
Yeah.
grandparents have a soft spot they will
Soft,
give.
soft
Yeah.
target.
Yeah. So then grandparents must say, go ask your parents
Right.
about this junk food, and this is not my domain at all.
Mm,
And do not make conditions for giving anything. Want to give, give. Don't want to give, don't give.
mm.
I've heard parents say, okay, I want a bicycle. So say, you get 80% in
Good
your
for you.
exam, I will give it to you. Whether the child gets 80% or not, the cycle is going to go to the child. You think the child and or the parent will not give the cycle? So, but one thing may be, okay, your exams are coming close by.
Mm,
Let your exams finish
mm.
and then we will buy the cycle. It's a win-win situation. Then you use the power of yes. Okay, you want it, I understand. I will give it to you. You want a chocolate now? It's dinner time. Keep your chocolate near your table. Have your dinner near your plate. Have your dinner, and then you can have the chocolate. So you're not denying, but at the same time, you're
Yeah.
also doing
Yeah.
getting what you want.
Only
And
if then is a problem. If you do, then you get, that
correct.
is a problem. Yeah.
Correct. And the last point is never yield to demands in the hope that the child is going to comply next time. Okay,
Mm.
I'm going to give it to you this time. Next time, will you
You
listen
have
to
to
me?
listen.
And then the child's demands will keep increasing because the child understands the weakness of the parents or the teachers or any other adult. And they say that demands will keep increasing. So never yield. If you're clear that this is a no, it remains a no. Yeah, so these are some tips
Beautiful.
and
Just beautiful. I mean, you have given a full-fledged training, I would say, like a university training, full education, I would say, and everybody should be given a degree into caregiving. I feel the kind of information and depth that you have gone to. Beautifully explained, madam. So much grateful and thankful to you for this lovely inputs that you have given. And you can see in the chat box also, there are people who are texting, messaging. I want to ask Madam, should we go ahead with the video now? Would you like to show
So
the
I
video?
think that video is something that we will all enjoy. It is a 6-minute video, and what shows this video has been made for teachers, specifically as a part of teacher training, but it applies to all adults, parents, everything. So if you could share
Should
the,
we take questions first and then go for video, or should we first take the video?
I think we'll take the video because it kind of sums up all that we have
Everything.
spoken so far.
All right, great. So I'm going to play video, but let's look at the people right now. How many people are here? And the house is full. And I'm going to play the video. And this is kind of a summary to everything that is being told.
I really wanted to think about what's the best way to teach teachers about trauma without getting them distracted with all the technical stuff, and what's the most important thing for them to understand and learn. And I thought that the best way to do it might be to just make a difference between a learning brain versus a brain in survival mode. So we'll just call it learning brain versus survival brain. And this is the difference. So learning brain is this brain that's open to learning new information, and it's completely okay with ambiguity and grays and vagueness, and it sees the big picture. It like pulls back and is on the balcony, can look over the forest and figure out what's going on. On an emotional level, people in learning brain feel calm, peaceful, maybe a little excited about what they're about to learn, maybe a little playful and having fun too, and definitely curious. And they're not afraid of making mistakes because it's just part of the learning process. And so they're not really thinking about themselves. And they actually feel a little bit of confidence that if they just apply themselves, they might pick up what they're trying to learn. Now, survival brain, on the other hand, is completely different. It's hyper-focused on threat. It doesn't like ambiguity. It wants clear, hard facts. It thinks in black and white terms. It doesn't want anything to be gray at all. And then emotionally, you can imagine that survival brain makes people feel panicky, feel like a little obsessive and afraid of getting things wrong. And they don't feel calm and open to learning new things. They just want to get things over with. And people in survival brain also really don't like making mistakes, and they are afraid of looking stupid too. So students in survival brain don't want to be picked on. They don't want to raise their hand and ask questions and look stupid. And so these people are also filled with doubt about their own ability to learn stuff, and they're afraid that other people can see how stupid they really are. Now, it's really important to understand how learning brain and survival brain interact, because survival brain always trumps learning brain. And it makes sense because survival brain is just trying to save your life. And so if it thinks that there's something dangerous happening, you better pay attention to it, right? But the tricky thing is that as survival brain stays on longer and longer, it's harder to get out of that. And it's harder to really go into learning brain. And the way I think about it is kind of like the myth of Sisyphus. You know, that guy who has to push a rock up a hill, and then every day it falls back down and he has to do it over and over again. Well, being in learning brain is like being up on the high parts of that mountain. You can see the expanse of what's going on, but it also takes a lot of work to be up there. And at any second, if you're not paying attention and putting effort into it, it's so easy to slip back into survival brain again. And that rock that Sisyphus is trying to push up, well, that's kind of like stress. And the more stressed you feel, the heavier and bigger that rock gets, and it just pushes you back into survival brain quicker. Now, the kicker is that for traumatized people, stress is a really rigid and intense thing. And so with trauma, any little stress makes that rock grow way bigger than it normally would. And because people with trauma misperceive ambiguous situations as threatening and stressful, that rock just stays big all the time. Now, the good news is that the more you control stress, well, the easier it is to be in learning brain, right? Because that rock is a lot smaller. And what I really want to highlight for teachers is that the best way to keep students in learning brain goes back to why I spent so much time talking about attachment. Students best learn when they feel like they're safe and supported by the adults around them. So it's kind of like a baby elephant. You know how like on those nature shows, the baby elephant is like playing with leaves or exploring a tree or something like that and having a lot of fun. And the only reason why they can do that is because there's a whole group of mama elephants around that baby protecting it and looking out for danger. So a kid with trauma or who's stuck in survival brain, it's kind of like that baby elephant who doesn't have protective adults around them. They can't play and learn because they're way too focused looking out for threat and danger. So this is why I really believe that the most important thing that schools need to focus on, way more important than any kind of techniques or curricula, is really whether or not they are creating that environment where students feel like they're surrounded by these big mama elephants who are going to protect them and watch out for them and make them safe. And when students have that, I bet you it unlocks their curiosity, their eagerness to learn, and play as a way to learn. So I hope that's helpful. Let me know if you have any questions in the comments below. Thanks.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I think answers everything. And if people are looking for good marks, good behavior, anything, giving a safe environment is the option, is the way to, and the communication, listening, all the things that you have told just now. And I would request everyone to put on their videos and let's open this for question answers. I will look at the questions, I will read them, or you can unmute and talk, but then I will just look at the questions who have posted the first questions. To my personal message, it has come. Child abandoned as an infant, spent more than 8 years in a CCI, adopted by single mother 3 years ago. Child stays hyper vigilant, goes from 0 to 100 level of anger in a second on minor day to day stuff. Oh, lovely. That's a very good input, and thank you for messaging me directly. Please advise ways to help the child maintain calm behavior. So, this is the question that follows. So, ma'am, would you like to say a few things on this?
Sure. So, child has stayed in the CCI for 8 years, which means the separation, we don't know at what age the child got separated from the birth mother and under what circumstances the child got separated from its biological home. And in these 8 years, we do not know what experiences the child has gone through. So, whenever it could have been abuse, it could have been gang wars on the footpath, it could have been abandonment on the railway station, it could have been anything like that movie, Lion. I don't know if you remember that movie. That's a very good movie to watch. The only things that we can do is give love, and more love. That is number one. Number two, make the child feel very secure and safe. When the child throws a tantrum, co-regulate, help the child to calm down and ask the child, what's happening? Are you remembering any old experience which is upsetting you? Would you like to talk about the experience? I am there to listen to you. I am not going to make any judgment. Now, this is a win-win situation because we will know what's happening in the child's mind, and we will also give that feeling of safety and security to the child that wherever I am, they are willing to listen to me and understand that it is okay for me to feel what I'm feeling and going through. Does it
Uh,
answer the question?
if the person is here and would like to kind of talk to ma'am, and then that you can do unmute and do that. Ma'am, there are a lot of praises for you, for the session, for the strategies that you have given, and beautiful messages are here. If there's any question I'm looking for, but they are just only praises and praises for you. Great learning, ma'am. Very practical approach. Respecting emotions and being mindful are very, very important. Thank you, ma'am, for very inspiring session. So many thanks. And if you can put on your videos and put some hearts here for ma'am for giving us the knowledge, the whole I think the whole experience and whole training. I would say more hearts for ma'am, and thank you so much. It was really so insightful. Let's take a picture also. Please put on your videos, those who can. If anybody wants to.
While people are putting on their videos, I would like to thank you, Dr. Rozina Rana, for giving this, approaching Sneha for this. And I thank Sneha for giving me this opportunity. We are Sneha, say Sneha, we are Sneha Society for Counseling. We provide voluntary services free of cost at Malleshwaram in Bangalore, but we also have telecounseling. If you go on to our website, Sneha Society for Counseling, you will find the phone numbers where you can get all the details of the phone numbers where you can come and so on. So that is what we do. I also want to acknowledge and appreciate Radha Nagesh over here, who took me into the adoption fold and gave me a lot of experience and exposure to how to deal with trauma and adoption. And here I would like to say what we have done over here is something that we went through a 10-day training program. And to encapsulate all that in 1 hour is absolutely not possible. So I've done my best, of course. And thank you for listening and thank you for being there during this session.
Thank you. There's
You
one
have
hand raised, ma'am. And thank you to Sneha Society for building up such beautiful counselors and support system where we can, just refer people if at all we are not able to do. And I would suggest that everybody goes for this small training that is there and we help society as much as possible. We extend our arms and help people. So there's one question, I suppose, Sugandha, if you would like to unmute and ask. And people, there's one feedback form before you go ahead. There's one feedback form. I would request Aisha to put the feedback form in the chat box. So please give your feedback. Your feedback is extremely valuable to us and that will help us improve. So Aisha, can you put, and it will be there in the groups also that you come from. Sugandha, please unmute yourself and talk.
Hi, Dr. Rosina. I don't have a question. I just wanted to bring it to notice. Some comments back, Shamshad Gilani has asked a question, and I think that's an important question if that can be covered before we close the session.
Sure. So, can you read out the question, please?
Sure, I can do that. The question says, Hi, ma'am.
Yeah.
I get more frustrated when some material gets damaged by my son and I be violent with him. Will it traumatize him? Somewhere I feel my reaction is because of trauma in me. Could you please guide? I feel that this is very important because a lot of parents tend to lose their because of various
Yes.
reasons. So if we could discuss this before closing the session, it would be great for everyone here.
Thank you,
Material gets
Shamshad.
damaged. Yeah.
Thank you, Shamshad, and thank you, Sugandha,
Gandha.
for bringing that. Yes, I think Shamshad has very rightly identified probably there is some unresolved trauma in her because getting angry is okay. There's nothing wrong in getting angry in any situation. How we express our anger is what we have to be mindful about. We can shout, we can throw things, we can do all kinds of things. But what we have to then work on ourselves is to say that, okay, I'm getting angry. It's okay to get angry. Let me calm myself down and let me see whether it's really such an important thing. Yes, I feel bad something is broken, but in the larger scheme of things, is that broken thing more important than my child? And can I resolve what is happening to me? Like we said in caretaking, look at what's happening to me. What are the feelings I'm going through? And then it'll help. And you're most welcome to reach out, Shamshad, if you wish to resolve this and work that out for yourself.
Thank you.
I have a
Thank you so
question.
much, ma'am.
Can I ask a question, please?
Gauri, you can go ahead and ask. Then there are some hands raised, so we'll go to them, Vincy and Priya. So Gauri, you can go ahead and ask question.
I just want to ask, ma'am, if there are any training sessions available for teachers or for parents who can address uh, trauma in kids and how to handle and how to address what do I say these kind of behavior adversities like throwing a tantrum, breaking things like one of the parents just mentioned. So it's basically how to address problem children, how to manage problem children, and how to identify trauma in children. So are there any courses, are there any training programs available with Sneha?
Thank you, Gauri, for your question. Before I answer your question, I'll only say one thing: there are no problem children. Children may have behavior issues which are problem for adults, and that is something that if we can just keep in mind, then once our language internal vocabulary then we look at the same situation very differently. Sneha does but if teachers want to come, we go to schools and colleges and address teachers also. So if there is anything that you want addressed, the school or institution, wherever, whoever wants this kind of training can reach out to us, and we will definitely tailor make the program for them.
What about at an individual level if I need to understand more about such behaviors?
We can have a one-on-one counseling session then.
Also,
Because
Renu,
if
I'm looking
yeah.
at training sessions.
Yeah, maybe I will explain what Gauri is asking, and if you correct me, Gauri, if I'm wrong. So, if individual wants a training from Sneha Society or some place where we get a short training on trauma understanding and management, would you recommend some place?
some place, I have to think. If there is something that strikes me, I will send it to you, Dr.
Sure.
Rozina Rana. And one-on-one, what happens is often we, from our experience, one-on-one can be done not as a training, but definitely as an interaction, because it could be that some of us are trying to deal with our own issues. And once those issues are resolved, then the way we look at things also changes. Okay, if it's a training or a single individual training, we don't do for one person, because group dynamics is very important. Learning becomes much more effective when we are in a large group. But if there are some specific questions, definitely we take it up one-on-one.
Also to extend to what she was asking, we can have maybe online. So together with Renu ma'am, let me also explore what is the possibility with a small group, if we can come online or offline, and we can organize a program for people who attended or people who are interested. So I'll float the message in the group that everybody is into the roots and wings.
Thanks for that. Yeah.
And Vinci, I don't know if I'm pronouncing the sentence right. Yeah, the word meant. Yeah,
Yeah,
please.
hi. Good morning. That's almost correct. I'm Dr.
Yes.
Vineet. I have recently completed my PhD, and this was precisely my topic of
Wow.
research, adverse childhood experiences. So I just wanted to share a few findings. First of all, Professor Renu has explained so well, and I'm so glad that people are talking about adverse childhood experiences in Indian context, because in my research, I realized that there's almost negligible awareness, and some form of the abuse, for example verbal abuse, etc., are part of cultural practices of raising up children in India. So they are not really seen as adverse experiences, part of raising up process. So what we found in Indian context is the prevalence of adverse childhood experience in our study, which was a sample based out of Delhi NCR, and sample was huge, around 1800. So it was 72%. So in Western context, where we had the prevalence of around 48, 49, 50%, here we had 72%. And the best, I mean, the worst thing is we had a very strict criteria to identify A's. So in most of the study, they use binary version where yes and no. Suppose the evaluation of A's goes like, have you experienced this, yes or no? We have used frequency version, so we have also evaluated what is the frequency. And the second important finding, of all the A's domains that we have considered, the most important that contributed to almost 8 out of multiple phenotypes that we considered, disease outcomes that we considered was verbal abuse, emotional abuse. So emotional abuse was contributing much more than physical abuse or domains of household violence, etc. So in India, where we do not consider verbal things, emotional things so seriously, I think that this word also has to float around, that how verbal abuse or emotional abuse affect children while growing up. Yeah.
Thank you. I think you added so much value also to this session, and I would definitely would want to have a separate chat with you, talk show with you,
Yeah,
and see if you're okay with that. Because the
definitely.
research and going into that depth and understanding things, and this way we are going to contribute little bit from our experiences to people who
Yeah,
need so much of help. Yeah, thank you so much, and you can please drop your number in the chat box, please.
yeah,
Uh,
I'll do that.
Priya. Priya, would you please unmute and talk?
Yeah, thank you so much for the opportunity. I just wanted to just say that I had the same question, or Vineet answered that. I was going to say that in the Indian context, you probably have a much higher A score or ACE percentages than in the US. I am in the US now. I'm calling in from there. I was very interested in this topic because I do a lot of work in mindfulness, emotional intelligence, and yoga therapy and other modes. The one thing that I will say that's worldwide is that parents tend to think that children are problem, and I'm so delighted to see that the speaker said there's no children are not problems, and
Yeah.
it's really the way we approach it. It is so important, and I would like to. I think there were some people asking about a good book for it. The book that I would recommend is this by Bessel. I think the Bessel van der Kolk or something like this is his name. Yeah,
Can you
and
please put it in the chat box? Because if you can put the name and book name and the author name, that would be a
yeah,
great help.
it's called The Body Keeps Score. It's one of the best books. The
Mhm.
Body Keeps Score, and you will see that. I think when you were talking about the parents having also come from some sort of a trauma or ACE, history, then you will see that a lot of those people have the diseases or issues, and they're ailing with GI issues and other psychiatric or psychological issues as well. So I just want to say this is such an important topic. The more you do there, I don't think there's enough that we can all do to really address it in India and in any country, to be honest, and anywhere in the world. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Priya. Thank you. And first of all, appreciate that at this odd hour from US, you are attending the session. And I suppose your work is also so much intense in this area, and definitely I would love to connect with you. And together, probably we can do something really good for the society, for India, especially. I would want to do something in India for Indians. So, yes, thank you so much, Priya. Also, if you can drop your number and also the book title and the author.
Yes, I'll do that.
And thank you so much, everybody, for staying till so long and being here. And you are everybody is so important who are attending this session. And I will come back to you if at all you're interested to do some work in this area. Get us training and extend your arms to help the society. I'll be more than willing, and Renu ma'am is more than willing to help. Do this good work in schools or even otherwise. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much. Really, really grateful and humbled and honored to have you here. Thank you, everyone.